Hey folks, welcome back. This is Kirkalmighty here. This is episode 16 of my Advanced Tactics Gold series. This is a email game versus the Ironduke. In this round you can see that Rommel, with the help of some of Lee's forces, was finally able to seize this junction down here, which is effectively just going to cut off everything down here to reinforcements coming from all of his northern cities and factories up here. Brest has been captured, and I begin to advance into the forest area right here. One thing I took note to up here, speaking of this area, is there's almost a sort of pocket forming right here. So if I were to continue to advance up this road with this armor, with some infantry support, which I've got a lot of that around here, and then advance forward over here with Clysis forces, I almost would have a chance of possibly doing some kind of pincer move right here and pocketing these forces in the forest right here. Just something I had taken note to. Now, I will not know if that's going to happen or not, because my opponent has gone ahead and forfeited the game. We did continue this game a few more turns, about 6 turns I think, because he had forfeited back on, I think, turn 15. But then he decided he wanted to continue, and I think it was a little premature at that point too, because he did still have a pretty good chance of turning things around. I think I was beginning to get the advantage over him, and beginning to turn the game in my favor. But I think playing it out for the next 6 turns, I think we end up playing was good. I think it makes a much better closure to the video series. Now I want to show you here the log and show you what he did on his last turn here. He ends up consolidating forces here. He brings some forces down through here, which I'm assuming are some kind of new reinforcements he had funneling into the area. He backs these guys back into here, and he basically forms a last stand right here to try and stop me from completely sealing off this junction. Also, if you remember last round, I was able to assault this city, and the assault, although it didn't succeed in taking the city, caused huge casualties. I mean, he was really overstacked here with tons and tons of artillery and whatnot, and I had just blasted the city with many artillery pieces. And when I actually assaulted it, I caused probably about 40% casualties on the city, which amounted to, I don't know, I know there was 10 infantry guns that got killed, probably 8 artillery pieces, several tanks, maybe 60 infantry. It was a lot that died there. And I weakened him enough around here. His prospects of a counterattack weren't that great, so he wasn't going to be able to push me away from these hexes like he had been doing for the last couple 2-3 rounds, which have been saving him. And so if he'd tried to hold here, I'm certain it would have ended up the same way this city went. Remember, he was holding a large force on this city, and when I assaulted it and actually beat him out of there, I inflicted about 80% casualties on those forces. He lost, I don't know, probably 20 artillery pieces plus tons of other equipment and infantry and things that were there. So I think he was seeing the same thing starting to happen here, plus the possibility of me getting down here and cutting this road and completely surrounding him. So in an effort to try and save some equipment and move into more defensible territory, I can only assume this is what he was doing. You'll see him start to pull out, like mainly the artillery. You'll see the artillery move way down. It actually moves way down out of range of me, what he could. Probably all the artillery had enough action points to do it. He was able to move down here. Let's go ahead and play, and you can see what he did on his turn. There he consolidates. He does some air attacks here. He softens there, and he actually does a land attack on that unit. Okay, here you can see him starting to filter forces out. Hits again with artillery there. He takes that guy out, and he backs up his forces down there. This infantry got backed out right there. And that's about it. Okay. So, I advanced into the area. I pounded this stack. I pounded that stack. Actually, I was able to take that hex right there and inflicted quite a few casualties on him in the process. What was left of it actually retreated down here. I hammered this guy pretty bad and assaulted him. Caused a lot of casualties. Also took a lot of infantry casualties of my own, but it was pretty much just all infantry. I don't think I lost any guns or anything. Very nearly took this one. In that battle, there was one tank that hung on that kept me from winning it, and it was this Rhino right here. He's got them high hit points on that thing. I think that was part of the reason why my guys just couldn't take it. So, and then Rommel was able to, with the help of Lieb, he busted this stack right here. I came in, I did soften it with some artillery. I attacked it from two different directions here. Pretty much annihilated everything that was there. He had a pretty considerable force there. What little was left retreated south. I moved in here, came through, cinched up, and now I've captured this junction right here. If I were to continue this game beyond this round, I was thinking about this, what my strategy would have been. And I think I would have dedicated a large portion of my production and built a small infantry army in this area right here to take over control of this junction and maybe work on, well, no, I might have Rommel do that. Built this army because it would be maybe next turn I could have it mostly there, but it would need at least a good turn to build up some experience and completely fill it out. So probably it would be the turn after that before I could actually begin pulling what Rommel has down here, his armor out of here. In the meantime, Rommel's armor could come down here and cinch up, take up this factory, take this factory, possibly this raw down here. Looks like he just got a garrison sitting there. The bulk of his forces were up here trying to hold the junction, so I don't think he had much really down here. I'm guessing next turn Rommel will be able to come down here, take the factory, and probably turn after that, capture the raw, if not the same turn. With an infantry army formed up just to hold this area right here, I would put him in a defensive position to hold. I would then move Rommel's armor over here to assist over here. Rommel's armor I think would be in a good position to come up through this forest and just, like I was saying, come up through here and just start to cut off this stuff up here, and he would have to either pull it back or lose it, because then I would go ahead and start an offensive with Kleist, and although Rundstedt has already started to move in on these guys and has gotten a little involved in some combat. But yeah, that would be the plan up here. Rommel come in here, these forces come up here, and then I would just move in on these two cities along here. As far as down here goes, at this point I think it would be a matter of time. What I would do is, I can see he's left this area pretty light over here. I'm guessing he's probably most interested in holding a stand behind this river right now, and I never really shown any interest in advancing this direction, so I gave him no reason to really put up much of a defense here. And you can see he's all vacant around here. And the next turn I would have shifted, made a major shift of Klug's infantry down into this pocket down in here. And then Bach would have continued over here and tried to push his way into this pocket right here. Of course, Modell's got the jungle covered over here, but the most important part of this would be to get Klug's forces down here and to seize this area right down here in this gap, which is kind of open for the taking right now. I think I could funnel down in there pretty quick. What that would allow me to do is to shift the bulk of my artillery up here, which I've got quite a few artillery pieces, or maybe at least 3 of these artillery pieces, move them down here. From this position very specifically, or any of these positions around here, I could then start artillery bombardment on this city right here, Mende. And that would be how I would deal with this, because with this junction sealed up, these forces can only get supply from Mende now. And it would take the bulk of Mende's production just producing supplies just to keep this army viable. He wouldn't really have much left to produce. He might be able to pop out a few infantry, and that's about it. But if I came down here with this artillery and I started bombarding this city like I did for several turns with Brest, and a couple of turns up here too with Canes, then this city's production would cease, and he would no longer be able to produce supplies. And this army, whatever he's got down here, and these air units, everything he's got down here, would lose supply. And it would only take a couple of turns out of supply, and I would just be able to roll right over them, regardless of what kind of terrain they're in, because at that point they get so weak that I could just, even Modell, who was stymied here in this jungle, although I kind of gave up on attacking in the jungle and shifted his artillery over here to help out over here, because I really wanted to break something loose over here. But Modell could continue on with what he was originally doing, and that is attacking this jungle. And even over here, you cut these guys out of supply. Even in this very good defensive terrain, Modell would be able to push through that. I would be able to just crush this and just eliminate everything down here. After 2-3 turns, no supplies. It's just not. They couldn't last. They would just wither and die. And while those guys are doing that down there, then I would, like I said up here, I would continue to redirect my forces on these 2 cities up here. That would be my plan. Hold a defensive position down here, which I think I've got really good. I mean, between these narrows, I got a bottleneck here. Up here I got river, forest. It would be really easy for an infantry army to hold this position down here and keep anything from being able to get through it. And with that, I would say that this is the end of this series now. Like I said, my opponent, I had plenty of fuel to get through that turn too, so my 8,000 mark seemed to be working out. Steady flow armor constantly flowing into to Rommel's army. He was doing some air attacks every turn. It was taking out some of them. He would take out 5 to 7 tanks with dive bombers every turn. And I would pick off some of the dive bombers with my flak too. Like I think last turn he lost maybe 3 dive bombers and a fighter, or 4 dive bombers I think he may have lost. Then I lost maybe 7 armor. But I got a real steady flow of armor just pouring in. As you can see, I'll show you the production. I've not adjusted production all this turn. This is actually what was produced last turn. You can see I had about 12 armored cars and 2 light tanks pouring into Rommel's HQ. So this steady flow of armor going into his HQ was making up for anything that might have been lost in his air attacks, and making up for armor that I lost when I was attacking him, and keeping these 6 armored formations in top form, fully reinforced, with a more than adequate fuel supply. So it's a pretty tough combination I had going there, and Rommel's army was pretty unstoppable, even though it was made up primarily of just light armor. I also thought too I would probably had started to shift Rommel's production towards fewer armored cars and more light tanks as my fuel. Well, yeah, it would not have affected my fuel at all. So that was my thinking. It was just a matter of what was holding me back was raw, which I'm continuing to increase. Raw has not been a real major issue for me. But I figured I would take fewer losses if I shifted more towards light tank and fewer armored cars. Would very likely maybe built another tank factory, so I could have been building that army out of tank factories and relieve the cities. Because I built a lot of the right now half of my armor is being built in a tank factory and half of it is being built in a production city. If I built another tank factory, I could just build all that armor out of two tank factories. So that's how I would have proceeded this game. This has been a really fun game. It really has been, and I think it made a great video series too. I mean, you saw a little everything in here. You saw spamming of artillery. You saw airborne attacks. You saw armored thrust and encirclements and different strategies of pounding a city with artillery and removing their production, and it's been great defenses and with counterattacks, and yeah, it just, you've seen a little everything in this, and I think it was a great battle, and it really represented the mechanics of the game pretty well. You even saw how I lost an airport over here because I made it a little too close to the line, and he was able to get some heavy artillery in here that could reach that far, and bam, just wiped out my airport. I lost all my fighters and bombers on that location. It was a great series, and almost sad to see it end, but there'll be more, and I appreciate you watching, and tune in again for one of my other series.